go. I'm going to get us started. Welcome back to Forest Talk, where we talk story about the plants and the animals and the connections we have to our native ohia forests. My name is Kim Rogers. I'm an outreach specialist at Kauai Invasive Species Committee. I focus on ohia, as most of you know, and protecting our native forest ecosystems from rapid ohia death and other forest threats. And I always like to remind people when you're using the forest to go birding or hiking or hunting or whatever it is you like to do in the forest, please remember to use biosanitation protocols, which is super simple in that first step. Remove as much mud from your footwear and your hiking poles and whatever as possible. And the second step is to use isopropyl rubbing alcohol. So that's a two-step process that we like to use and encourage people to use to help slow the spread of rapid ohia death and other invasive species. During our time together, if you would follow good Zoom etiquette, keep yourself muted. There will be time at the end for Q&A. And of course, if you have questions, you can pop them in the chat at any point in time. Hopefully, we'll get to all of them. I'm sure we will. We are recording this, as I've already mentioned, and I'll be sending it out in the next day or two. Meanwhile, there's 12 or 13, I've lost track now, of other Forest Talk episodes that we have uploaded to YouTube. And I will drop the link to that series in the chat in a minute because there's all kinds of good ones. Maybe you've missed our talks on kahuli, our land snails, maybe our forest birds. Last month we talked about our native bees in Hawaii. So lots of good information and education is being amassed over there, and it all connects in some amazing way to our forests and just helps remind us of the importance of our forest ecosystems here on Kauai, how special they are, and how we need to protect them. Speaking of our previous forest talks, before we get into today, I want to alert you to our next one, which will be held on Wednesday, August 5th. And we'll be chatting and sharing about Opea. And I'd love to see the first person who pops in the chat and tells me what that is. What species? When I say Opea, what are you hearing and thinking and knowing and hoping to learn more about? Oh, yes, there we go. Well done, Mary Beth. Our Hawaiian hoary bat. So that's going to be a fun discussion. They do use our ohia to roost in and nest in. So I'll be putting the link if you want to register for that in the chat in a minute. But let's now get to our topic for today. Let's first start. I'll introduce our guest speakers. Tim Flynn is the noted curator of the herbarium at the National Tropical Botanical Garden. He has worked at NTBG since 1981. In addition to managing the herbarium, he has also participated in field work all across the Hawaiian Islands, Samoa, Tonga, and honestly, more places in the South Pacific than we have time for me to name. Currently, he seems to have taken a particular interest in the often understudied world of bryophytes. That's one of our guest speakers for today. Our second guest speaker is Amanda Vernon. She has the dubious honor of working alongside Tim as the herbarium curatorial assistant at NTBG. She has contributed to a range of projects within the herbarium and is currently contributing to the digitization of NTBG's bryophyte and lichen collections. And she's also creating identification key to Hawaiian mosses. And in fact, together, Tim and Amanda have recently published this 100-page book called Common Mosses of the Hawaiian Islands. It is available at the Lawai Gardens Visitor Center gift shop and also at the Limahuli Garden gift shop and by mail. I'll drop in the chat in a minute with a link to more information about it and how you can get your hands on it, because I know you're all excited about it, as am I. And today, so as you've probably gathered, today's talk is on the common mosses of the Hawaiian Islands. And so with that, let me welcome and turn things over to Tim and Amanda.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to hear what Tim and I have to say about mosses. And thanks so much for Kim for inviting us. So let's get started.
Your slideshow is up and running. It looks great.
Great. Okay, so as Kim mentioned, Tim and I recently published a pocket guide that covers 40 of the common mosses you'll find in the Hawaiian Islands. Well, Tim and I are by no means experts in the field of biology, but our goal in creating this guide and in speaking with you all today is to help increase awareness and inspire others to observe and start studying mosses. Okay. Okay. So when we think about plant diversity in the Hawaiian Islands, we usually think of flowering plants or ferns. But today we're going to be focusing on the fascinating and often overlooked group of plants, the mosses. Mosses are part of a group of plants which include liverworts and hornworts, a group collectively known as the bryophytes. Because bryophytes are small and they don't produce flowers, they often go unnoticed. But as we'll see today, these plants really do deserve our attention, and their size often hides their ecological importance. To put their significance into perspective, bryophytes are actually the second most diverse group within the plant kingdom, while angiosperms or flowering plants are among the most diverse with around 350,000 species globally. Bryophytes hold a strong second place with approximately 19,500 species. Bryophytes were among the earliest of land plants, evolving around 450 million years ago. Over these millions of years, they've diversified and adapted to every continent on Earth. While they thrive in areas where water is plentiful, like damp, shady environments, they're also incredibly resilient and are able to survive in some of the most extreme habitats like deserts and the Arctic tundra. So what exactly is a bryophyte? As I just mentioned, bryophytes are divided into three distinct divisions: the hornworts, liverworts, and mosses. All three of these divisions share fundamental traits that set them apart from other members of the plant kingdom. Bryophytes are non-vascular plants, meaning they lack true roots and vascular tissues like xylem and phloem, which are needed to draw water and nutrients from the soil. Instead, bryophytes act like small sponges, absorbing water and nutrients directly through the surface of their leaves from their surrounding environment. Because bryophytes lack these vascular tissues, they're often quite small, usually just a few centimeters tall. One exception to this is in the Australasian area, where the giant moss Dawsonia superba can reach heights of up to 60 centimeters or nearly 2 feet tall. With bryophytes, you will not find flowers, fruits, or seeds. Instead, they rely on microscopic spores to reproduce. Many can also reproduce asexually by vegetative propagules such as gemme and brood bodies and relief and stem fragments. The life cycle of bryophytes consists of two alternating stages or generations: a dominant gametophyte stage and a dependent sporophyte stage. I'll go into a bit of detail on this in a few more slides. So let's look at our first group of bryophytes. These are called the hornworts. The main body of a hornwort is called the thallus. You can see that right over here. This is the thallus. Generally speaking, a thallus is a flattened mass that is not differentiated into stems and leaves. Their sporophytes, which are right here, look like tiny horns. Unlike other bryophytes, these horns grow straight out of the thallus without a supporting stalk. The supporting stalk is a structure known as a seta. This is the smallest group of bryophytes, with only about 227 species known worldwide. And next up, we have the liverworts. Unlike hornworts and mosses, liverworts can take two different forms. They can either have a thallus, like we see down here, or they can have a leafy shoot. When they are leafy, Their leaves are typically arranged in 2 or 3 distinct rows. A major distinction between mosses and liverworts is that liverwort leaves will be lobed or notched, and they will lack a costa or midrib. So if you see a prominent line running down the center of a leaf, you'll be looking at a moss, not a liverwort. The stalk or seta, which we see right here, is colorless and very fragile. It quickly disintegrates after releasing spores. The capsule, seen right here, when the capsule opens to release those spores, it splits cleanly along longitudinal lines, and unlike mosses, it will never possess teeth around the capsule's opening. There are about 7,360 species of liverworts globally.
Yeah, and I just wanted to interject and say that of all the land plants in the Hawaiian Islands, the only endemic family is actually of native liverwort called Kahapuloa. And it's in the Kahapuloaceae, I believe, and it was described from liverworts that were collected in the uplands of Maui, just described in 2023. So that's kind of interesting that our only endemic plant family is a liverwort.
Okay, so finally, let's take a look at the mosses. Unlike the other two groups, mosses will only form a leafy shoot. Their leaves are usually spirally arranged around the stem rather than in flat rows. The leaves will not be notched or lobed, but tiny teeth may be found around the margins. Many mosses will also have a costa or midrib. The setting of the sporophyte is colored, wiry, and persistent, and it persists long after the spores disperse. When it comes to releasing the spores, the moss capsule usually will not split in lines. Instead, it has a little cap called the operculum that falls off before spore dispersal. Once the operculum falls off, you sometimes can see a ring of microscopic teeth called the peristome. Mosses have approximately 12,000 species worldwide, making them the most diverse group of bryophytes. So here's just a summary of some of those main differences between the bryophyte groups. Since we're focusing on mosses today, just try to remember these general features. Leafy shoots with spirally arranged leaves, leaves that usually have a midrib, and they'll have colored, wiry seta. The seta are those elongated stalks of the sporophyte, and the capsules will open with a lid. Okay. So now that we've reviewed the main differences between the bryophyte divisions, we'll take a look at the basic structure and the specific terms we use when looking at mosses. So a mature moss plant has 2 distinct generations joined together as one. The bottom half, seen here, is the gametophyte. This is what we picture when we think of a moss, the leafy green part of the plant. This part of the plant is responsible for photosynthesis, as well as producing the gametes or sex cells, the egg and sperm. Growing out of the gametophyte, you'll find the sporophyte. It relies heavily on the gametophyte for nutrients, though it is photosynthetic when young. The sporophyte is responsible for the production of spores. Okay, now we'll have a closer look at the gametophyte. So the gametophyte stage consists of the rhizoids, stems, and leaves. As I mentioned earlier, unlike most other plants, mosses do not have roots. Instead, they have small root-like structures called rhizoids. These are found at the base of the plant. These are filamentous, hair-like structures that anchor a moss to a surface, and they're usually a brown to reddish-brown color. There are many, many important diagnostic characters to look for in the leaves of mosses, and there's no way we can cover all of them today, but I do want to point out just a few very basic fundamental features. So the first is the leaf shape. Mosses have a wide variety of different shapes. Some examples include lanceolate, like we see here in this first leaf. That means it's shaped like a lance or a spear. Ovate in this second leaf, which means egg-shaped. or they may be linear, like this one, all the way to the right, meaning long and narrow like a blade of grass. Next, we'll look at the costa. That's that midrib we see right here. So the costa is a thickened midrib or central vein in a moss leaf. Its primary function is to provide structural support of the leaf. The costa is also incredibly variable. It can be single or double, and it can be prominent or nearly invisible. And its length can range from so short you can barely see it to extending beyond the leaf tip. In this first leaf here, you can see this costa kind of extends beyond the leaf tip, whereas here it kind of stops right there. The width of the costa can also vary, with some being so thick that they dominate the entire leaf. Finally, another character to look at are the leaf margins. Depending on the species, the margins might be smooth, like we see here, or they can be toothed. But again, they're not going to be notched. If it's notched, that's most likely the liverwort you're looking at. But a liverwort is not going to have teeth like this, but that can be a bit tricky when you're in the field looking at that.
Some of the leaves can also be folded or have plications, and you can see that on the left-hand leaf. Those linear arrangements of dots are meant to illustrate folds in the leaves, and those can be very characteristic for some species.
Moss reproductive structures are found in clusters at the tips of stems or branches, and they're protected by modified leaves. The male reproductive organs are called antheridia. They're shaped like little sausages and produce the sperm. The female reproductive organs are called archegonia. They are flask-shaped, and each will hold just a single egg. Antheridia and archegonia may be found on the same individual plant, or they may be found on separate plants. So for reproduction, moss plants rely on a film of water to transport the swimming sperm from the male antheridia to the female archegonia in order to fertilize the egg. Next, we're going to move on to the basic structure of a moss, the sporophyte. And this is the spore-producing part of the plant. The sporophyte comprises the foot, the seta, and the capsule. The foot is found at the very base of the stalk. It is embedded within the gametophyte, anchoring the stalk. The seta is the elongated stalk you see here, and it holds the capsule. The seta can vary widely in length and color. It may be smooth or bumpy, and it may be erect or wavy and flexuose. Found at the tip of the seta is the capsule. This is an inflated structure that contains the spores. Unlike leaf shape, the shape of the capsule can also vary greatly. Some examples include globose or spherical, cylindrical like a cigar, or ovoid like an egg. The inclination or orientation of the capsule relative to the seta can also range from erect, inclined, horizontal to pendant. Over here, we see the calyptra. It is a cap-like structure that protects the capsule and falls off once the sporophyte has matured. Calyptrae generally come in two forms, hood and cone-shaped. Pictured here is a hood-shaped or cuculate calyptra. And you can see here that the hood is split on one side. When the calyptra falls off, it will reveal the capsule's lid, which we call the operculum. When the spore matures, this lid falls off, revealing the peristome we see here. The peristome is a circular structure at the opening of the capsule, consisting of teeth arranged in one or two rows. A peristome is not present in all species, but when it is present, it aids in spore dispersal.
And we should say that sporophytes are not known for all species of mosses, or they quite rare. So we have mosses here that we have not ever found the sporophytes for, and that could be that only plants may be dioicous, which means they have separate male and female plants, and only a single sex was introduced or made its way to the Hawaiian Islands. And also, I wanted to say that when we talk about the capsule and how it splits, and a lot of these characters, those are generalizations. There is at least one genus of Hawaiian mosses that where the capsule splits, almost like a lantern. There are other species of mosses that aren't found here where the capsule disintegrates and kind of separates very jaggedly. It does not have an operculum. But the characters we're giving you are ones that you will generally see.
Okay, so to tie in everything we just learned, we're going to take a very, very, very quick look at the moth life cycle. So we start with down here with a mature spore, which was released from the capsule. The wind-blown spore will land on a surface and begin to develop into a protonema. This is the beginning of the protonema, and here's it more matured. This is the first stage of the gametophyte's development. The protonema, it's just kind of this filamentous mass, and it will form rhizoids and small buds. These small buds continue to grow into the leafy gametophytes. As the gametophyte matures, it eventually develops the male and female reproductive structures, the antheridium and the archegonium. And with the aid of water, sperm from the antheridium will swim to the egg in the archegonium and fertilize it. Once fertilization occurs, the sporophyte stage begins. A sporophyte will grow directly from the mother plant, anchored by its foot. The seta begins to grow and develops a capsule at the top, which is protected by a calyptra. We can see here, so this is the mature sporophyte. The capsule matures, and then the calyptra will shed. Once the spores are mature, the operculum falls off and the spores are released. Then the cycle just continues to repeat itself. The majority of mosses can be divided into two groups. We have acrocarpous and pleurocarpous mosses. Acrocarpous mosses have upright stems and typically form cushions or turfs. The stems are usually unbranched or only sparingly branched. Their sporophytes develop at the tips of the main stems. In contrast, pleurocarpous mosses creep and sprawl. Instead of standing upright, they spread out to form mats. Their stems are usually more heavily branched, and their sporophytes are formed laterally instead of terminally.
And another thing about acrocarpous mosses is that whenever you're see mosses that grow submerged in streams and things like that, those will never be acrocarpous mosses. Those will always be pleurocarpous mosses.
The checklist of Hawaiian mosses was published in 2004. Since then, there have been numerous state and island records documented. The numbers shown here are based on the 2004 checklist, but an updated revised checklist is currently in the works, and these numbers are definitely going to change. So across the Hawaiian Islands, we have 273 taxa documented. This includes species, varieties, and forms, and accounts for all native and naturalized taxa. An incredible 95% of these taxa are native. These taxa are distributed across 135 different genera and 42 families. There is one endemic genus, Baldwinella caeliensis, pictured here on the right, and it also happens to be a monotypic genus, meaning there is only one species within the entire genus. And finally, 35% of our native moss flora is endemic, which is a relatively high level of endemism for mosses on a global scale. Our understanding of Hawaiian moss diversity is still actively growing due to ongoing fieldwork from botanists across all the islands. One example of this is the new species Warburgiella spinososetta, which was recently discovered on Hawaii. Additionally, it represents the first record of the genus Warburgiella ever found in the Hawaiian Islands. Discoveries like this show that the Hawaiian Islands are still a place of discovery and that they remain an active frontier for botanical exploration.
So where are we going to find mosses? The great thing about mosses and bryophytes in general is that you can find them just about anywhere. They're found in wet and dry forests, native to heavily disturbed areas. They're found growing in streams. They're found from the coast to the top of the mountains on the islands, and the coast will often be found growing on trees. I've even found mosses growing on the breakwater in Nawili Willie where they're exposed to salt spray. You've got urban mosses, mosses that are found growing in the roads, things that are growing on your rooftop, rock walls. You know, if you go to the parks or golf courses, you'll find mosses and other bryophytes. It's really the great thing about it because almost all the mosses that we'll see are going to be native. And so it's when we think that we live in these lowland impoverished areas where so many of the native species have been lost, one of the things that they're hanging on one group, the bryophytes. They're often pioneer species. Mosses, liverworts are often some of the first plants that show up on new lava flows, areas of landslides, or find them in areas of high radiation, stream banks. They'll grow on bark. You see them growing on metal, discarded metal, things like that. They provide wonderful microhabitats, great places for native seeds and spores to germinate. They provide homes for all kinds of invertebrates. Here's a picture of a nest made by one of the native forest birds made out of the sporophytes of a native moss. Why do we What's so wonderful about mosses? Well, they're amazing at capturing and storing moisture. Uh, they store carbon as they break down and capture leaves and other things. They help build nutrient-rich soil and they prevent erosion. One of the things we wanted to do was from our book, we wanted to talk to you and show you 6 of the more common species that you'll see in the forest on Kauai. The first one is Homaliodendron flagellatum. This is a plant that is indigenous to the Hawaiian Islands. It means it's native here, but also found in other parts of the world. Found on all the main islands, from mesic to wet forests. You'll often see it growing up tree trunks. Said tree trunks there, something like that. It's often growing on exposed roots and rocks. Some people, when they see it, often think of it as a small fern. It's found in a wide range of elevation from 35 meters to almost over 2,000 meters. Here is a wonderful picture and very common of how you'd see it. It's a pluripotent moss, means that it's a spreading, often entwined leaves and large mats. It's really a beautiful little moss. This translucent, kind of a glossy pale green to pale greenish brown. Often has a silvery color to it, especially when it's dry. Again, it's something that's quite common up in Kauai. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's often considered, people mistake it for a small fern. It has triangular to elongate fronds that are bipinnately branched. The branches are all found in a single plane. The leaves are closely pressed to each other. They overlap. And the apices, or the tips of the leaves, are quite serrate. The key characteristics of this, and the picture on the right is a photograph of a dried herbarium specimen, and you can, what's kind of nice is that you can see the sporophyte there. These are often I don't know if they're rare, but I think you have to turn the frond over to find them. Most people don't see them. But it's forms these large loose mats. Again, this nice kind of a glossy pale green to silvery green, elongated triangular fronds. Yeah. This is one of my favorite ones, and this for those of you who have seen the moss book. This is the species that is illustrated on the front of that of moss book. This is Theridium cymbifolio. This is the only Hawaiian moss that we know of that has a Hawaiian name. Makopi. Excuse my pronunciations. I'm from Texas. We often mispronounce things. This is something that's found on all main islands from seasonal wet forests. Again, grows on the base of tree trunks, rotting logs, soil lakes. Occasionally find it growing on rocks, often growing mix with other bryophytes, and again, quite a wide elevational range from 10 meters to over 2,000 feet. Another indigenous species. But here again, a beautiful picture on the right. All the photographs that you're seeing were all taken by Amanda, either in the field or back in the studio. It makes these large mats. They're often brown to green like this. You get a color variation, and on the left hand you can see where it's grown mixed with other species. Yeah, here it is, dark green, bright yellow green, or chestnut brown. You'll see it dark green where it's in areas of quite a heavy shade. Again, it's a pleurocarp, it's the mat forming moss, intricately woven mats. The sporophytes are found on lateral branches. And this one you can see in the picture at the right, you can see two types of leaves, and the larger leaves on the main stem you can see have lines on them. Those are where they're folded or plications. These are quite stiff. Again, beautiful photograph that Amanda's made. Yeah, and you can also see between those stem leaves, those are called paraphilia. They're well, actually, know what they do?
They help with moisture
retention. So here we are. Here's a picture of the sporophyte with erect capsules. Erect sporophyte, the capsules are slightly curved. Again, beautiful plant. Here's one that another indigenous species. This is one you're most often actually likely to see in disturbed urban areas. This is called Bryum argenteum. And argentium refers to the silver color. Often see it again growing parking lots, roads. You find it growing on your rooftops or on gutters, things like that. Very occasionally you'll find it on bare soil. Again, a wide range of elevation from 35 to over 1,200 meters. This one we think actually, what we call Bryum argenteum, we think actually maybe two different species. The opinions about that have vacillated over the years. Here it is, it's an acrocarp. That means it's kind of a cushion moss. It has generally red stems and not branched or very lightly branched. The sporocarps are found at the tops of the stems. Here it is again. This you can actually look at this beautiful whitish color. This is when it's kind of dry. These are the tips of the leaves that you see. Like I say, we think this may actually be a species called Bryum native. We'll have to do more work on that. What can I tell you again? Stems erect, densely packed, quite short, up to a centimeter and a half. The leaves are quite short, millimeter long, but tightly pressed to each other. Very sharp, pointed tips. It's a really prominent when dry, but and you're likely just as likely to see this on a rock wall in your garden as you are to see it perhaps the Walmart parking lot. Again, one of the main characters, actually for the genus, is that you have this Rexeti with a very sharply bent, hanging pendant capsule. What's funny about this is you won't find the sporophyte in the lowland areas. This is a photograph that's taken up in Coquet. It seems to be only in higher elevations where you'll find the sporophyte produced. Leucobryomes. This is probably one of the more common things that you'll see up in Coquet. The genus itself is quite widespread. I've seen them in Kalaheo along some of the roads on the upper side of Kalaheo. The Acrocarpus moss often produces these nice tufts, have these beautiful kind of a curved leaves. Here's a really nice photograph. The cushions separate easily. It will often have kind of a reddish setae that holds capsule. There's another beautiful picture. There are 3 species of Leucobryum in the Hawaiian Islands. This is probably the most common one. Leaves are 5 to 6 centimeters long. That falcate or curved aspect is really a giveaway. They often end, the leaves are so enrolled that they form almost a little tube right at the very end of the leaves. But you'll see them where they're almost whitish or pale green, and actually Leucobryum means white moss. Here they are with the erect capsules on those beautiful reddish brown setae, and you can see really, and the enlarged picture on the right, it has that little bump. That's characteristic of the genus. Those are called stroma, and you'll have that little bump on the capsule. And there's a really nice picture Amanda earlier talked about peristome teeth. This is one where they're very prominent. So the dark rusty reddish brown structures on the end of the capsule are peristome teeth. This is a beauty. This is probably one of my favorite mosses. Again, something that's quite widespread. And the way it's pictured, where you have green, kind of orange, dark chestnut brown. That is just how you see it out in the forest. It's another indigenous species. It's found on all the main islands and these wet forests. Again, bases of tree trunks, rotting logs, stumps on the soil. It's often, again, growing mixed with other species, but it will form these big, beautiful, almost monotypic colonies, really extensive carp. It's another acrocarp, meaning it has solitary, sparingly branched stems with capsules that are formed, or sporophytes that are formed on the terminal ends. This one is really nice because if you remember the picture of the leaves that Amanda showed, and it had the far right is one of the little serrations on the edge of the leaf, and you can see it if you look on these pictures. Yeah, this is really a real beauty. The stems, when they're dry, can be quite bottle brush like. Amanda's pointing out things. I'm trying to remove it, but it's got this wonderful costa that sends right to the end of the leaf. And there's a very similar species where the blade of the leaf is actually quite short. It's just at the very base of the leaf, and what you see is really all extended costa. There it is, a beautiful erect sporophyte of that slightly horizontal capsule. Again, the whitish structure you see at the end of the capsule are parasite teeth. This is often find this with sporophytes, where it can be quite rare with some plants. This one is really common. It's another beauty. God, I love all these things. Macrometriums. These are ones that you can often find in your yard if you have palms or anything with a nice rough bark in your yard a lot, and you live in an area that has any kind of moisture. You'll find macrometriums growing. These are often well, this particular species, you're going too fast for me. It's an acrocarp. It's one that spreads. It's funny. It has the appearance of a pluricarp moth. It's an acrocarp. It makes these nice woven mats that often have these long leaders coming out from the edges. secondary stems are quite short, but it does produce the sporophytes on the terminal areas of the shoot. Again, it's bright green, older leaves will turn brown, almost get deep brown, blackish with age. This one is Macrometrium proliferum, which is this is the easiest one to find if you ever see it, because if you look at the very tips of the leaves, it has a prominent kind of a silvery hair point. It's an extension of the costa that sticks out, and that's a dead giveaway for this species. The way this is when it's dry, this picture, it shows it almost spiraled into almost like a cone shape. This is a wonderful moth, really quite widespread. They're actually, there's another picture of those beautiful hair points. This is one that, for this genus, you'll find probably 4 species that can be found relatively commonly. This is the easiest to identify that. They're known as haircat mosses because of that hairy calyptra that shows there. And that calyptra is actually, if I'm not mistaken, is part of the top part of the archegonia. So when the sporophyte is produced after the egg has been fertilized, as it grows out of the archegonia, it kind of pulls part of the top of that with it, and that helps protect the capsule. But, these haircat mosses, yeah, these are just gorgeous plants.
And for this species too, with proliferum, the setae, it will be held above the leaves like this. Some of the others in the genus will be more tucked within the gametophyte down here. There's another species that'll be even longer than this setae. Yeah.
That's it. Thank goodness you got to hear more of Amanda than you did of me.
That was great, and I'm sure I am not the only one sending my appreciation in the form of my clapping everyone. The react button at the bottom. Feel free to respond and share your appreciation. There it is. It always takes a second for people to find it. Anyway, yay! Oh, good. Look at that.
So,
Wow.
Kim, you're going to answer the questions, or
I will moderate. How's that? And I have some questions that I've written down. We're going to start with 1 or 2 of mine, and then I do see a couple in the chat, and other people want to add their questions in the chat. But now, if you would, Amanda, maybe stop sharing so we can all see each other on camera. And for anybody else who would like to turn their cameras on, now would be a great time to do that because we can have a great conversation that way. First of all, I want to say the Arctic tundra, mosses in the Arctic tundra, that's amazing. And the other note I made was a moss 2 feet tall. I mean, another amazing fact and feat of these bryophytes. And let's see where to start with my questions. Um, I think I want to start with a really broad general question. I know that I've run into Tim before, like in parking lots, and I'm like, Tim, did you lose something? Can I help you look for it? And he's literally just looking for bryophytes in the environment. So yeah, he's looking for something. But Amanda, I'm curious, like, why mosses? What drew you to mosses, and what do you find kind of intriguing or curious or fascinating about mosses?
Yeah. So my interest was actually before this, it was in Hawaiian ferns. And I loved ferns. I thought they were so unique and kind of overlooked as well at the time when I was first studying them. And so I thought it was just such an interesting group. But then I took some time off, had kids, and came back to Hawaii. I was on the mainland for a while, and they happened to be looking for someone at NTBG to work on an NSF grant to digitize their bryophyte and lichen collection. And so I jumped at the opportunity because I have the background in digitization as well. And that's when I started. And I mean, there's so many things I love about mosses. When you give someone a hand lens or you have one yourself, and you just start discovering all the diversity within the mosses and all of their cool little vegetative propagules they can produce. It's just they're so fascinating. And one of the things I really, really love about mosses too in the Hawaiian Islands is that so many are native, like Tim mentioned, is you can walk outside and it's always like, oh, we see all these invasive plants and it can be really disheartening. But then can literally just walk outside of the building I'm in now and you see native mosses. And I love that aspect of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to
Oh, go ahead.
interject that Amanda said she started out with ferns, and if people are interested, they can go to the Bishop Museum website and they can look up interactive Hawaiian fern key, I believe, roughly that's the word. And that is this wonderful way to figure out native Hawaiian ferns, or actually the ferns that are in Hawaii. And it's not like a normal key that you would find in a book where you have a series of either or choices. This gives you a whole suite of characters. You pick the ones you know, and immediately eliminates anything that doesn't fall under those choices. And slowly work your way down. It's illustrated with photographs and drawings and stuff. It's something that we had hoped to do with Hawaiian mosses, and if we can find the funding, that's something we want to do to create the same kind of key for Hawaiian mosses.
Love
And
that.
it's something Amanda did for her master's, and it's an amazing resource.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And since we're talking about ferns, you mentioned, and I agree, Spam Musubi, I just want to call you out in the chat. The photography is spectacular. And I loved when Tim was doing his sharing of the various species. Each image got closer and closer and closer to give us that detailed view. So, I mean, obviously, when you're thinking about studying, looking for mosses, the use of either a macro lens on your camera or a hand lens or magnifying glass is pretty critical. Um, but Tim, you since we're talking about ferns for a second, and you had mentioned one of your mosses is fern-like or sometimes gets confused for a fern. What, for either one of you, what would be the tips for identifying or distinguishing fern versus moss,
Ooh, well,
apart from roots?
if you weren't really familiar with it, it would be hard. But if you ever see a capsule or a sporophyte, it's not going to be a fern. Ferns don't have sporophytes or capsules, so uh, mosses tend to be a lot smaller than many of the ferns. Not always. Some of the filmy ferns are quite small, but I would say if you were to slice open a stem and you saw vascular tissue, which you would
Mhm.
have in the ferns, if you cut open the stalk of a fern frond, you should be able to see the vascular bundles in there.
You could also even just look at the leaf venation of a fern. There'll be many more veins than you would find in a moss leaf. So the
Okay.
moss leaf would just have that single or maybe a double. Yeah. But
Okay.
it's not going to have really intricate venation.
Good tips. Because, I mean, I'm
Oh,
sure oh, go ahead.
and two, just thinking on the back of a fern, yeah, you'll see where how their spores are arranged. So you'll see those dots or the lines. You're not going to see that sporophyte. You'll see a different arrangement of sporangia.
Great. So there's a few different ways to look because I'm sure other people are like me that, I don't want to just pull apart, pull up from the ground, start slicing into something, unless I need to. If I'm doing some scientific research, that's legit. But I don't want to just be traipsing through the forest and being like, do you have roots? Slicing
Yeah,
it.
totally.
Right. So the
Yeah.
physical or visual symptom or characteristics were super helpful. Thank you for that. And now I want to get back to Bill's question. He's got a few of them and they're all really good. Thanks, Bill. First one is how do you collect, prepare, and preserve mosses and their relatives?
Um, the first thing you do is you get permission from the landowner. So it means you have to do it legally.
Yep.
You want to get, for us, when we're out collecting, Yeah, we're looking to see if we have the right outside. So we have permission. We try and collect enough material that we can sometimes just fit in the palm of your hand. Uh, this is basically the uh, uh, our final packet, which is where things are stored. It's like 4 by 6 roughly.
Will you
We
hold that
try,
back up, Tim? I just spotlighted you so everybody could see you and you're bigger. Okay. Yeah, there.
yeah. And
And
so
everybody.
this is this will be what the specimen will look like. And so
Okay.
that's a single specimen. Now and this each specimen that we collect is given a unique collection number. So when a collector goes out, he or she, when they make a collection, they give that collection a unique number, and we try and make duplicates for all of our collections. So one of our specimens would stay here, one would go to the Bishop Museum. We try to go up to about 6 collections. You want to send them out to other herbaria, just because it's ill, you don't want to keep all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Something happens here, the specimen could be lost, but there'll be duplicates, say Bishop Museum. We also send specimens to Cal Academy because they have experts there who can help us identify things. We send things to Missouri Botanical Garden for the same reason, to New York Botanical Garden, to Smithsonian.
Hmm.
All these places that are more likely to have people coming through and looking at their collections. Their larger collections are on the mainland, so they have more traffic. They may have historically strong collections from a particular area, but they don't have collectors working in those areas now. So we try to fill that gap. But yeah, you generally, if you have enough to fit the palm of your hand, you can generally get 6 specimens out of that.
And then how do bryophytes in general I mean, how well do they stay in the herbarium as far as, I mean, they seem so fragile, right? And they seem so delicate. Do they last?
Like any collection, when the one thing that with bryophytes, we don't dry them with heat. We just air dry them. Then
Okay.
they're frozen to kill any insects. They're stored in these packets. The packets, the way we store them, they're stored upright and they're just stored in boxes. As long as they're protected from humidity, from insects, from light, uh, they
Okay.
should last forever.
Okay.
All the herbarium specimens are probably been around from the 1400s. So
Oh, wow. So Bill also asks, would you like specimens from the general public? Are you at that point?
we'll take specimens from the general public again as long as they're legally collected. Uh, if you're a private landowner, you don't have to worry about it. Take things from your own yard if you want. That's not a problem. There are no threatened or endangered Hawaiian bryophytes, so you wouldn't have to worry about getting a special permit to collect rare endangered plants. But yeah, we would love it. We want information on what it was growing on, uh, the date it was collected, latitude and longitude. Um, from that, we can get quite a bit of information for the geographic area, but it's nice to know the physical locality. Say if you collected it from your yard,
Right.
it's really nice. I would say that you can make the packets like I showed you just from an 8.5 by 11 uh, piece of paper, just fold it up and store them in there.
Yeah, usually Tim and I will just have some prepared envelopes before we go in the field. And you just fold them in a piece of regular printer paper. And then like different people collect them, like I'll bring a bag with me and just have all my envelopes in there and then put my specimens in. There's this one guy, Jim Shebach from California Academy of Sciences, a rhinologist. He'll bring along a separate bag that has a little Tupperware container that he puts all of his specimens in. So, yeah, but they're, yeah.
You can also go online and you could query, how to make specimens of bryophytes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Um, we were talking about the use of hand lenses and macro lenses with cameras and stuff. Mary Beth is asking, where's a good place to buy a hand lens to take along on hikes? Do you have any recommendations? And she also says thank you for your cool introduction.
Amazon.
Yeah. I don't know if you can buy them, at least on Hawaii, anywhere. I'm not sure on other islands.
You might check KCC at their bookstore. I honestly don't know. That's just a guess.
That's a
Most
good tip.
people can get away with getting a 10x hand lens. Uh, sometimes some of the hand lenses that you can spend a ton of money, uh, and they have different magnifications. Some of them come with lights. It
Right.
kind of depends really on how much money you want to spend. But I would say Amazon.
Have you had any success? I mean, I know with my, our phone cameras, right? Oftentimes I'll take a photo, make sure like I'm getting a good exposure and it's crisp and clear. And then once I have the photo, I'll zoom in. I mean,
Yeah,
that
that works.
it
That works really
would
well.
seem to
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You
Now
could
I want to,
also hear somebody said forestry suppliers is a great place to get
oh,
handlings as well.
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can also buy those little magnifying lenses that you can attach to your phone that are really nice.
Right. I actually have one like that, which I use to photograph kahuli up there in Kokee, and now I'm going to use it for mosses. Bill has another question, and that is, are any species in Hawaii invasive, or house invasive pests and diseases?
Yes, they are invasive. They're the really bad species that you can see up in Kokee, especially in the meadow along some of the trailheads now. It's called Calohypnum plumiforme, I believe. I'm not even sure where it's introduced from, but it's one that does not, here it is in the book.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
we should have done a slide with this,
Yeah,
but
there it is, yeah.
What page number is
It'll
that?
form. Oh,
68.
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it'll form these really extensive mats, and one of the things that it will do is completely overgrow other species of mosses, things like the Fuidium, the one that has the Hawaiian name. We just recently had a researcher here from Spain who was looking at trying to compare uh, uh, the, the the floras of isopods and things like that from native and this introduced species to see, you know, is there a difference in how they host native communities of insects and isopods and things like that. So I suspect uh, it won't be as such a wonderful host as the native species. But
Hmm.
it has the ability to take over in the
Yeah.
areas that it gets into. It's not necessarily an epiphytic moss, it's terrestrial, but I think it could be really bad, like a lot of mosses. It's spread not by spores, but by vegetative parts. So that could be if you were walking and you stepped on it and you got stuck in the mud on your shoes or something, you could spread that as you move along the trail, things like that. So it's
Yeah, and that's exactly where you'll see this a lot. It's just along trail slides. It's really kind of a bright yellowishy green. And yeah, like I was just over on a big island and it was along so many trail sides there. And in addition to being terrestrial too, you see it start to creep up some of the bases of trees as well. And that's the location where you'll find lots of our native mosses, and you can just see how it can totally overcrowd those areas.
So it has our typical characteristics of an invasives where it just takes over. And
Mhm.
Martha,
I mean, it grows in Colorado Hill in my yard.
yeah.
And I don't know how it got there, but it's certainly there.
And it's just so thick too, as you can see, oh, okay, a patch of it. But if you pull out just a small patch of that, there's so much underneath that you're actually pulling out.
That might be the same because Martha was also asking about invasive moss, and she says she's noticed that there's plume, what she calls in quotes, plume moss in Volcano on Hawaii Island. Is that the
There's a
same?
lot of it up in that area. Yeah, the one house I stayed in Volcano Village, the backyard, the grass was just had this moss growing all almost the lawn. It was really amazing.
And Dana Ann Yee, if you're still here, I'm not sure I understand your comment. So if you would like to explain, please do so. Okay, and Martha says it looks the same as your photo, so I think you answered that question about the invasive in Volcano. Um, Meanwhile, I mean, I have more questions, but I could go on forever. Sorry, it is auto. Oh, sorry. Uh, oh, thank you, Dana. Okay, so question is, what camera are you using for these great photographs?
Yep, so in the field, we have we just use our iPhones and also have a Olympus TG7. But then for in the studio, we're sitting in the room right now, so I'm looking up at the camera, but it's a Canon EOS R5 and it's outfitted with a 100 millimeter macro lens.
Wow,
And
100 millimeter.
it has the ability to do focus stacking, which
Yeah.
which I'll let Amanda explain.
So in the studio, what we do, and also on our little T7 we can do, it's called focus stacking. So it's when so you have your specimen and you take multiple images and they're all in different focal planes. And then you take all those images and make a composite image from that. So you have just this beautiful clarity in the image.
Sounds amazing. Yes. Okay, last question, and then I will let you go because we're up at the top of the hour and so appreciate your time. But because, my focus tends to be ohia and ohia forests, any special relationship with a certain moss that you guys have come across and ohia?
I would say that mosses or bryophytes in general, um, they serve as a really great nursery for opiate seeds. And because they hold water, the water will be held kind of within the clump itself, and ohia seeds, as well as seeds from a lot of native Hawaiian plants and spores from the ferns, can land there and have a really inviting, wonderful nurturing place to germinate and to start their life. So it's a wonderful nursery for native
Yes.
Hawaiian plants.
Thank you. You're right. I've seen that so many times, right? Up in the forest. And we're so grateful to the mosses and the service they provide us because, I oftentimes talk about native ohia forests, their importance to our watershed, but wow, it's that relationship that ohia have with mosses that truly the mosses are the sponge of our forest. I mean, they all work together, but, mosses, wow. I love how you talked about, they're often overlooked, but they are so critical to life, all life, right?
And one thing I hope that people, if they get out in the forest and they go into an area of, if you're on Kauai and you went on the Pihea Trail, or if you were in other areas of Kokei and you got into some of the areas that have been heavily invaded by the strawberry guava or the Kahili ginger, you're losing the bryophytes as well. That stuff grows so thickly, or because that's the case of the Kahili ginger, that you'll get nothing growing there. You won't get any regeneration of the vascular plants. It crowds out the mosses. Places like the strawberry guava, when they are fruiting, the pigs come in and root around and destroy the understory. So you lose the moss cover there. It's, so we're really losing a lot of these plants. It's just that they're so small, open doses.
Right, right. So important. Even the tiny little plants in our world are super important and contribute to the whole. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Tim and Amanda. When we close out today, you might get a tab pop up in your computer screen asking you three short questions that helps me with programming for future events like this. Please feel free to answer that question if you have a moment. Actually, those three questions. And then look back for our next forest talk, which is going to be in August, early August, on Opea, our Hawaiian hoary bat. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for being here. Ahui ho.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.